In this session, we're going to talk about how to book brief cases. Book briefing cases is a great, efficient way to approach cases in law school. If you book brief a case, you'll be able to read the case closely and highlight things like the facts, the holding, the analysis, and then you'll be able to quickly find them in class so that will help you follow along better in class. It'll help you answer questions when you're called on. It'll help you feel confident when you go into class. It's a great way to prepare for class. I recommend book briefing over case briefing because book briefing will save you a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to write a case brief. And you might want to write a case brief in some instances. Like you might want to write a case brief in the beginning of the semester when you're just starting to get used to the language of the law and you're getting used to your classes and you're getting used to how to read a case. You might want to write an actual case brief if you know you'll be called on. It might help you feel more confident going into class. You might want to write a case brief if that's the only case you're talking about during that class, like it's a very important case. But in all other instances, I would recommend book briefing. I found book briefing to be so efficient and to accomplish all the same goals as case briefing that I literally did not brief a case after my first week of law school. I completely switched over to book briefing. And again, it allowed me to read the cases closely, prepare to be on call, but it saved a lot of time in the process. Remember that the law school final exam will not test cases in almost all circumstances. So a professor is not going to ask you about the facts of a certain case. Again, in almost all circumstances. So it's not going to benefit you to have a big pile of case briefs to take with you to the final exam. Instead, what's more important is that you extract the rules from the cases. You put them into an outline, you learn that outline, you practice exam questions. That's what's going to help you on the law school final exam. So book briefing will help with this very important task of preparing for class, feeling confident for class, being able to take good class notes, and following along in class. It will also help you if you're called on because you can just open your case book and find what you need to find right in the actual case. All right, so what is book briefing? Book briefing is just a heavy annotation of a case in your case brief. So basically what you do is you read the case and then you highlight or write in the margins certain points about the case. For example, in this case, the facts are highlighted in yellow. The rule of law is highlighted in blue, and the analysis is highlighted in green. You might also want to highlight things like the procedural history or the holding, okay, or other aspects of the case. There are two ways to book brief. Some students will simply take notes in the margins. That's what I did. I would just say facts, and I'd draw an arrow to the facts, rule, holding, analysis, procedural history, and I would just kind of write right in the margins where all those things were. Other students will develop a complicated highlighter system where basically they carry 10 different color highlighters with them everywhere. They highlight the facts in yellow, they highlight the rule in green, and they'll use this highlighter system throughout law school. Okay, whatever works for you is fine. I also found it helpful, just as a little tip. When I would book brief cases, I would tailor my book briefing to the types of questions my professor would ask in class. So for example, I had a professor that would always ask, what did the plaintiff argue in this case? And what did the defendant argue in this case? So when I was book briefing for that class, I would simply highlight what the plaintiff argued and what the defendant argued. That way I could prepare for class even better than I otherwise would. And if I was called on, I wouldn't spend 2 hours trying to find the plaintiff's arguments and the defendant's arguments in my casebook because I had already highlighted them ahead of time. So you can make book briefing a tool that really works for you if you pay attention to the types of questions that your professor likes to discuss in class.